the impact of distance on tourism demand and tourist behavior says that things are related, but closer things are related more so than distance things. And in practicality, that means that demand for any good or service declines exponentially as distance increases. And so if this is seen to be a universal law of geography, then it should also apply to tourism. And demand should decline exponentially as distance from the source market increases. Distance has a huge impact on tourism demand, and this is something that's often missed in the tourism literature. We talk about marketing, we talk about behavior, we talk about how you can segment markets, but very few people recognize the fundamental impact that distance has on filtering out a lot of people. And it's one of the reasons why destination management organizations target an older market in the long-haul market and a younger market in the short-haul market. And it's because the older market is the one that's most likely able to travel long-haul. The short-haul market is much more interested in short-duration travel. You know, the young office lady from London is not going to come to Hong Kong for a weekend. But the group of young office ladies from London will go to Paris for the weekend. So why should somebody like the Hong Kong Tourism Board target the young office lady from London? They can do a much better job targeting the young office lady segment from Taiwan or Thailand or Indonesia. Beginning maybe 20 years ago in Australia, I started to play with looking at how distance influences the volume and the profile of tourists. And lo and behold, the relationship became clear. And I've since followed it up with a number of other studies. And one of the studies that we did was a study looking at WTO data, where we looked at outbound travel from 40-some economies and arrivals in, I think, 114 different economies. And that was the best global pairing we could get of outbound and arrivals. And what we found was that distance decay applied in every case. The curve was shifted over in the case of island economies, where obviously you have to travel a distance to get to your first destinations, or in some economies where political tensions stop people from traveling from one to the other. But in every instance, there was a bit of a lag. Demand peaked close to the economy and then declined. In fact, what we found was that something like 80 to 85% of all international travel happens within 2,000 kilometers of a country's border. And that once you get beyond about 4,000 kilometers, you're really only looking at 2, maybe 3%, maybe 1% of arrivals coming from a source market. Now, there are some modifications. In some cases, the appeal of the destination is so great that you'll see a secondary bump. This happens, for example, in travel from Europe to Spain, where the appeal of Spain is so great, or from Australia to England, where the colonial ties are great, or with some travel to America. Outbound travel from markets where we could get primary data is the composition of the market changes as well. And one of the things about the impact of distance on demand is that distance is not a deterministic variable. You don't wake up and say, I only want to travel 150 kilometers today. But what it is an effective proxy that combines a whole series of other variables. Time availability for holidays, your travel budget, travel party size, your willingness or ability to enter into a culturally strange environment, and of course your motive. So if you're looking to travel for fun and relaxation, you don't have to travel very far for that. You have a much more homogeneous market. Anybody who can travel short haul. When you start to look at long haul travel, well, distance adds a tremendous filtering effect. And it effectively filters out a lot of groups who are still interested in travel, but for the reasons mentioned before of time, budget, travel party, cost, etc., can't travel. And so the long-haul market tends to be disproportionately 50 plus, achievers or affluent retireds. It tends to be more couples. It tends to be far more independent tourists, and it tends to be well-educated people who have lots of leave time, who are also traveling for that one-off experience. The short-haul market tends to be consists much more of families, of the young office lady segment, but also people who are looking for fun and escape and don't need to do a whole lot more. There are a whole lot of other differences as well between the short haul and the long haul behavior patterns. The amount of time they spend in a destination, how much they spend per day, even the type of hotel they choose. Whereas the short haul tourist will sacrifice quality in hotel for more money for expenditure, the long haul tourist will spend less shopping and spend more on hotels. We also, in our follow-up studies, found that not only did distance peak close to where the effective tourism exclusion zone starts and stops, will dictate demand. So if the period of effective tourism inactivity is close to a source market, then you'll see a very high peak of demand, followed by a very sharp drop-off in demand, and then a secondary peak once you get into the long-haul segment. Where it's pushed a long ways away, you'll see a much more normal geometric curve. The effective tourism exclusion zone distinguishes short-haul travel, which tends to be short break, single destination, maybe with or without a package, recreational travel, high repeat visitation, all of those things. The outer boundary of the effective tourism exclusion zone defines long-haul travel. And long-haul travel tends to be multi-destination, it tends to be longer duration, it tends to be smaller party sizes, couples instead of families, it tends to be higher expenditure, and also when you're looking at motives, it tends to be much more aspirational and often a once-in-a-lifetime type of trip.